Welcome, everybody, to Bases Loaded right here on OTF. I'm your host, Blake Munroe, where I'm joined each and every Friday by Jeff Howe and CJ Vogel. Guys, we got a lot to talk about. Want to back up a little bit, though, to the sweep last weekend. And then, of course, we'll talk about that unfortunate loss to Texas State. But get y'all's thoughts on what we've seen over the last week since we last met.
Yeah, look, I texted – I don't know if I texted you guys this or if I just texted CJ, but I underestimated, quite frankly, how much Missouri was going to struggle in that series. It was rough. You hate losing Max Ballou. The good news is the three guys that were hurt. I mean, Rylan Galvan DH'd against Texas State on Tuesday, so he's closer, obviously, to getting back than Rodriguez or Ballou. And, there's a chance Rodriguez could play this weekend. And, with Max and Blake, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute. Schloss has set a target date, that OU series at the end of the regular season. So he's going to be back at some point. So at least those injuries aren't season ending. And at the very least, you'll get those guys back. Everybody will be back for the SEC tournament. My thing was, I just didn't like, you could tell they were kind of trying to find their footing against Texas State offensively. I agree with Schloss. I just thought there were some bad at-bats against Texas State. A couple just misplayed balls in the late innings ended up killing you in that game. Cade Bing was outstanding, and that's been one of the bright spots in these midweek games, even though you've had a couple losses. But, overall, I'll chalk up Tuesday's Texas State loss to you were playing without two key players and one who was limited with Galvan, and you pretty much controlled that game up until the late innings. And, Will Gasparino, you hit a 440-foot tank. Not to say that's going to completely excuse an error in center field, but I'll live with that one mistake for, 6 home runs in a 5-game stretch.
Yeah, I thought he was spectacular. You go back to his series in Columbia, my goodness. I think we had all kind of hoped that he would find that stretch, to find that consistency, but maybe not to that level, right? Felt like every at-bat was one that he's sending about 400 feet to left center field. So that'd be great. And Texas could certainly use a little carryover with Adrian Rodriguez and Max Ballou. Their status is unknown with Ballou. We know that he's going to miss a few weeks, but I think moving forward, how can you consistently find that defensive approach, right? How can you make sure that all 27 outs, give or take, are made in 27 opportunities? Something that we saw bite Texas in the rear on Tuesday. When you're limited offensively and you don't have those big bats in the middle of that lineup for an extended amount of time, your defense and your gloves are going to have to stand up. Free bases, errors, whatever it might be, that's what I'm looking forward to this weekend, making sure that Texas remains on path with some of the top in the SEC.
It goes back to, guys, y'all have heard me say it a lot, and I'll repeat myself again. It's an old Augie Garrido-ism. Get your outs on time. Don't kick balls around, fielding errors, throwing errors, whatever. Pitchers fielding their position, catchers fielding their position. Get your outs on time. That was kind of one of the two things that really stood out in that Texas State loss.
Let me ask y'all this. All three injured, of course. Galvan looks like he DH'd, as you said, Jeff, on Tuesday. But Max is playing at an incredible level. Galvan's also playing at an incredible level. Rodriguez as well, offensively especially. Which one's the biggest loss of the three?
Ballou. And I say that because Galvan's already back. But, you take Max's bat out of the lineup. Guy hitting almost 360, 6 homers, 22 RBI. And a veteran hitter who you can put anywhere in the lineup. I mean, they got him in the 2-hole. We know he can hit third. He can hit cleanup. He's got the speed. I guess if you wanted to, you could hit him at the bottom of the order, but we know Schloss isn't going to do that. But he's got the speed and the bat to play. And what's underrated about him, too, and this is something that, playing a Georgia team that's got gap power and they lead the nation in slugging percentage. I want to see how Tommy Farmer does in right field, especially, we'll see if the weather cooperates on Saturday and Sunday, what it does, but especially the Friday game. Augie always said right field is the toughest position to play in that ballpark because of the way the shadows hit when the sun's setting and it hits the clamshell, the way the shadows are. Right field is the toughest position to play. And Max Ballou has held down right field for a couple of years now. So Tommy Farmer in right field, that's going to be critical. So you lose a guy that understands how to play his position in that park, an All-American caliber bat, and you lose a really good leader and a guy with great work ethic. So all the way around, man, it hurts you. And to quote Will Gasparino, when I asked about it Tuesday, he said, yeah, obviously it sucks that Max is out. So I think we can all agree.
Yeah, 100% on that one. All right, guys. Well, as we do each and every week, we're going to take a look at the polls here. And Baseball America now leading the pack with the highest ranking of the Longhorns at number 3. D1 Baseball Perfect Game in USA Today, all in agreement with Texas at number 5. And then the National Collegiate Baseball Writers Association has Texas at number 6. Hard to argue with those. I think you can make a case for any of those spots, if you ask me.
Yeah, that feels about right. And again, maybe you look at where Texas could be if they took care of business on Tuesday nights. But grand scheme of things, I don't think it'll hurt Texas too much. And again, at this point in the year, to be middle of the top 10, you got to like where you're at.
Yeah, I feel the same way, CJ, about the Texas State loss and the UTSA loss, really. I think from an RPI standpoint, with the games you're going to play in conference, I think it's all going to even out in the end. But, they're in the same position they were going to the LSU series. You lose a midweek game. If you win the weekend, you'll be a top 8 team come Monday. If you don't, you'll probably be in that, 9 to 12 range. I think this Texas team has proven that they're going to be in contention. The whole, as we saw them, the complete team, they're good enough to be a top 8 seed. But remember, I've said it all year, man. Everybody in the SEC goes through it. At some point, you're going to hit that wall. I don't think this is Texas hitting the wall, but the adversity is you got a lot of injuries. And as Schloss has said, and we've all seen it, whether it's being out at practice or watching this team in games, the depth isn't quite where he would like it to be. And, you're really having to kind of mix and match pieces. So this is the adversity that's hitting Texas. It's not playing bad per se. It's you got a couple of really key injuries. How are you going to be coming out of this? And when by the time you get those guys back?
All right, before we move on to our next segment, I want to tell everybody out there about one of our favorite sponsors, and that's Chinook Seedery. Be sure to check them out online at www.chinookseedery.com, or, of course, they're available in your favorite stores as well with 8 great flavors to choose from. I know that you will find a flavor that suits you, whether you're at the ballpark or maybe just watching the game on the couch. Whatever you do, be sure to grab a bag of Chinook. And want to thank them for sponsoring each and every week right here on Bases Loaded. Okay, well, we looked at the polls, which leads me to our next thing here, guys. And D1 Baseball put out their midseason edition of their Field of 64 projections here. And they got Tennessee 1, Arkansas 2, Georgia 3, Clemson 4, Florida State 5, UCLA 6, and then Texas 7. And let's key in on that. Texas, TCU, UT Rio Grande Valley, and then Oral Roberts as the 4th and final team in that Austin regional. Y'all's thoughts on that?
If you're the committee, obviously the conference race and the SEC tournament will do a lot of the work for you. How do you even begin to figure out which of these SEC teams are going to be top 8s? I'll tell you what, there's going to be some really good SEC teams that might not even host a regional. I would, and granted, again, this is me turning into SEC homer again, so my apologies. But you're going to have, Blake and CJ, you're going to have an SEC team, a good SEC team, go to somebody's regional as a number 2 seed or even a 3, and there will be an SEC team. I can almost guarantee you this. There will be an SEC team that doesn't host a regional that's playing in a super regional. It's just this conference is just too deep, and you'll be too battle tested by the time you get to the postseason.
I tell you, if you're Texas and that's the group that comes down to Austin, you're going to like your chances a pretty good bit.
Oh, without a doubt. And think of all the storylines, guys, that we'll hear. Sloss versus his old team, TCU. That will be a driving point that the media puts out there for sure. and a fun storyline to follow. But
and you can get some revenge on UTRGV too for that midweek loss last year that took about 6.5 hours to get through on a Tuesday.
And to your point, they have LSU at number 8, and we've already named multiple. But then let's see here. It's going backwards. Alabama at 11, and I think the final SEC team that they had, who Texas has beaten this year, Ole Miss at 15. But yes, I mean, just littered top 3 that they project right now. SEC, then of course Texas and LSU in there as well. But
see what I'm talking about, Blake? Like, look at this hypothetical, a Manhattan regional, which K-State being the number 9 overall seed. Would it surprise you guys if Skip Johnson's team went to Manhattan and won that thing?
No,
not at all.
Not at all. Yeah, I'm more surprised that they don't have them hosting more than that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, but like the other teams in other conferences have to host, right? Like, you got to get one of your top 8s has to be a West Coast team. And not to get too deep in the weeds for National College Baseball, but dude, this is where it's going to benefit you. Like, you look at the polls right now, UCLA, I think in Baseball America is like 17. Like, UCLA is like a top 15, 20 team. But playing in the Big Ten, they're about to just start racking up wins probably. They're going to pile them up. Probably same thing with like Arizona State and Arizona in the Big 12. Because the Big 12 is not great this year when it comes to baseball. So it's Oregon in the Big 10 too. So you're about to see some of these West Coast teams where that Pac-12 used to be kind of, you cannibalize each other, and then you end up with a bunch of teams on the bubble. Okay, those middle of the pack, the top tier Pac-12 teams, now that they're in the Big 12 or the Big 10, they're going to be in contention for top 8s and regionals.
Well, since we're on the subject of the SEC, let's look at Texas' next matchup. And if we go by the Baseball America polls, that's number 3, Texas hosting number 4, Georgia, guys. And I actually did some digging, and I want to bring this up here. If I can find the dang graphic, I have too many windows open. And this isn't the prettiest, but this really drives the point home. So this is the SEC ranking for Georgia's batting. They're number 2 in batting average, number 1 in slugging percentage, number 1 in on-base percentage, number 1 in runs scored, number 2 in hits, number 1 in RBIs, number 1 in home runs. It is worth noting they strike out the 4th most in the SEC, which blows my mind when you think about all the number 1s and 2s I just read off. But then when you look at pitching for Texas, number 2 in ERA, number 4 in opposing batting average, number 1 in hits allowed, number 2 in runs allowed, number 1 in earned runs allowed, and number 1 in home runs allowed with only 5. So 5 versus 29 when you look at the home runs there. But, I mean, to me, that's what this series is all about, fellas, is going to be Texas pitching versus Georgia's batting. I don't know if y'all have any other viewpoint on that or disagree, but I really feel like that's what this is going to come down to this weekend.
I think this puts into perspective how good this Georgia program is offensively. They've done all of that. And by the way, Blake, to expound on what you're talking about, home runs per game, first in the country in slugging percentage, second in the country in on base, second in the country in runs per game, 14th nationally in batting average. This is an elite offense, maybe the best offense in the country. And they lost Charlie Condon from last year's team. You lose the National Player of the Year, and you still might be the best offensive team in the country. So, yeah, they're elite. It's going to be a really nice challenge. I think it's one of those weekends. Schloss indicated in his media availability on Thursday, other than Cade Bing, it's all hands on deck this weekend, and you're going to need every single one of your arms you've got available to win this series, because there are going to be no easy outs. And I think you mentioned the strikeout number, Blake. I just think that's a sign of kind of where the game has gone at all levels, high school, college, minor leagues, the major leagues, whatever. It's all about slugging percentage, the extra base hit, the home run. Don't really care if you strike out. More kind of true outcomes are either walking, it's an extra base hit, or you're striking out. So, it's a really dynamic team Texas is getting to play. But, hey, this is this is the kind of series that Max Weiner has been developing his pitching staff for. You're gonna get tested in all kinds of ways this weekend.
Yeah, the big thing for me is those home run numbers. And look, I'm at the dish. You can hear it in my microphone at the moment. It's pretty windy right now. And look, if that's the case tonight, tomorrow, Sunday or not, the wind's blowing straight out. So for Texas, those 5 home runs allowed so far, number 1 in the SEC, that's a great sign. Does that sustain what is the hottest, most powerful team hitting-wise in the country? And Texas did a great job of subduing a very talented LSU lineup as well after the Friday night. Can they do that again? Are you able to limit another powerful lineup? We'll see. But right now, I've loved what I've seen from a Luke Harrison, a Jared Spencer. Dylan Volantis has been tremendous. Max Grubbs. I tweeted it out on Tuesday and probably jinxed it again. But, hey, Jason Flores has become one of my favorite pitchers out of that bullpen. So I'm eager to see what this group can do against another top 5 quality lineup. And it's only going to help them as they continue through the SEC and into postseason play eventually.
Blake, I want to get your take on this because I've asked different pitchers about it. I've asked Schloss about it. Like, Max Weiner's thing is dominate the zone, DTZ. And matter of fact, Ruger Riojas, I think it was after his Sunday start against LSU, came to the media availability wearing a hat, and Max made these hats. It just says dominate the damn zone. It's one thing to like have that on the wall and like say that's your mantra, but for guys to believe it, and whether it's Luke Harrison or Jason Flores or whoever I've asked about it, so that really helps them kind of gather themselves and make it a pitch by pitch game. I'm blown away at the fact that these guys have bought into Max Weiner so quickly and so wholeheartedly. Like, they have believed everything he's preaching to them. And those numbers you just put up, I mean, that's considering where this pitching staff has been the last couple of years in terms of production. That's tremendous. And I know they're going to face some really good offensive teams. Again, LSU was one, Georgia's another. Arkansas, even though they're struggling, A&M can still score runs. Jace Laviolette's still a great player. But at the end of the day, the mentality of this pitching staff, I'm floored at how much it's flipped from year to year.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I think that was, and I've said it, I've told y'all before on this show, I think Max Weiner is probably I hate to say the brightest mind because it's hard to say that, but one of the brightest minds in college baseball. And I mean, just as you said, Jeff, just what he preaches, it blows my mind, like how far it come so quickly, And I mean, at the beginning of the season, we saw some ups and downs in the middle, and of course, it's baseball. You're going to see that happen. But I mean, that's they've just improved so much, in my opinion. I mean, statistically, it's hard to argue with. And again, I know that they have, some of those mid-game jitters or whatever you want to call it from time to time. But that's gotten a lot better. It's come so far from where we were a month ago. So yeah, I mean, to his credit, the job that he's done in Austin has just been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, we talk about offense, but I think this weekend, this matchup, I think you've got the 2 best pitching coaches in the country with Max Weiner at Texas and Wes Johnson at Georgia.
And I really wish, normally there was a stat that I read on Weiner, and I wish I could remember it. And I actually saved it. Now I can't find it. I was trying to bring it up when you were talking. And Texas puts it in their preview each and every week. But at the time of recording, a little after lunch right here on Friday, they don't have that preview up, and it's there every week. And I wish to God I could find it because it goes with exactly what you're talking about. But I will make sure to have that for next week's show because it just shows like how dominant he is and the philosophy behind it, why he preaches what he does. So yeah, it was great stuff, and of course I just can't find it right now. Go figure.
Well, Blake, just give me a cue next time you need me to filibuster, and I'll fill some time. So you can.
Yeah, next time I remove my hat or something like that. Or
give me the sign, yeah,
third base sign.
Since you did that, I'll go ahead and jinx you. Your Longhorn rotating helmet has been rotating for this whole show. So if we get through this taping, and that makes us 2 for 2.
Yes. I mean, as much as I paid for that thing, it should work all the time. But hey, what can you do? Every now and again, I got to give it a little spin to keep going. But that's A-okay with me. So, All right, guys. Well, before we get to our last segment here, and StreamYard not cooperating with me, I want to tell everyone about Tackle Addict. Are you an avid fisherman who's always searching for the right supplies? Then do yourself a favor and check out tackleaddict.com. It's owned and operated by former Longhorn Brian Robinson and former Longhorn baseball great Brandon Belt. Tackle Addict has everything you need for the best in today's fishing equipment. And Tackle Addict is for the everyday fisherman and serious pros alike. Get their product shipped directly to you from the shores of Lake Sam Rayburn. That's Tackle Addict, ADDICT.com. And Brian and Brandon say hook on. So this morning, we had Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball on Coffee and Football. And Bobby asked him, what has been the biggest surprise to you regarding the Longhorns this season? We're halfway through there. So I want to ask y'all that same question and get y'all's take on that. What has been the biggest surprise to you, whether that's, a certain thing or a certain player, whatever it may be? No answer is off limits.
CJ, you want to go first?
Yeah, well, I don't know if this is a surprise considering what he did at his previous stop, but Ethan Mendoza and what he's done already this season, that is as consistent a bat at the top of the lineup as you will find. And, I've been over the moon with how pleased and just tremendous he's been on the field. I mean, 1.047 OPS so far. He's got 4 homers, 17 runs batted in already. And to have that on-base percentage just hovering right below 500, when you look at what's becoming into that next 2, 3, 4, 5 of the lineup, that's so underappreciated right now. He's been that guy for me. I could go on and on about pitching, but right now Ethan Mendoza deserves a tip of the cap, and he's been my most pleasant surprise so far in this season, 100%.
I'll give you 2. I think, you start looking at kind of this lineage of first basemen at Texas, with, Zubia did it, and then, Ivan Melendez, Jared Thomas. There's 3 guys playing pro baseball. I didn't know how Kimball Schuessler was going to do defense. We know Kimball can hit, and we see, man, Blake, I feel like I say this every week about Schuessler. I don't think I've seen a guy have as many hard hit balls, square up as many balls as he had, that just get hit right to people. So the luck's going to bounce his way at some point offensively, but I've been really surprised, pleasantly surprised by how good he's been defensively at first base. Just holding it down. That hasn't been, it's almost out of sight, out of mind at this point. And for the pitching staff, you could go a number of ways. I go, Luke Harrison locking down that number 2 starting role. I didn't know how he would do there because, obviously last year coming off of Tommy John struggled a little bit, but I think now he looks more like the guy that was awesome as a freshman on that Friday night in Houston or Saturday night in Houston against LSU a couple years ago. He looks more like that guy now than he did at any point last year. But the way Dylan Volantis has attacked his role as kind of the stopper, if you will, got some big outs in Starkville on the road, got some big outs in the LSU series. And if you win this weekend, he's going to have to get some big outs too. But it just, going back to the pitching mentality we just talked about, Blake, it just seems like, he's an intimidating presence. Yes, he's a hard thrower. Yes, he's got stuff. But the fact that mentally and just his makeup, nothing seems too big for him. The moment hasn't seemed too big for him. That's pitching at this place. I've seen it mess with a lot of young pitchers, even some that turn out to be really good. The fact that he hasn't blinked, you got a special one in Dylan Volantis.
That was actually going to be my answer as well, is Volantis. Yeah. 1.17 ERA, 27 strikeouts, 4 walks, guys, 5 runs allowed. And and he's at 20-something innings pitched now. I'd have to go back and look. I can't remember the exact number, but for a freshman to come in and put that up, and as you said, just that calm, cool, collected composure, nothing short of impressive.
No, he's on that short list of guys. Houston Street's at the top of that list, but you can think of the guys that Tanner Witt was one of these guys that got to Texas as talented freshmen and just stepped into their role and dominated. So, man, it's hopefully we're seeing the start of a really special career.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Bases Loaded. Want to thank Tackle Addict along with Chinook for sponsoring today's show. Be sure to go check out both of them. And we'll be back same time, same place next week, hopefully talking about a series win over number 4 ranked Georgia. So for Jeff Howe and CJ Vogel, I'm Blake Munroe, and we'll see you next time.